with the draft in the books, we decided to do another beat writer roundtable. We got two of our favorites here alongside myself in TCO Studios. I have Ben Goessling from the Star Tribune and Matthew Coller from Purple Insider. And you guys, I feel like it just happened. We got to catch up on some sleep yesterday after the marathon that is the NFL draft. Ben, I'd like to start with you and just your overall bird's eye view of a draft grade of what you think the Vikings were able to accomplish this weekend.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a complete comprehensive look at it with a 5-person draft class. I'd probably go B+. I think there was an identity to this. I think there was an extension of a lot of what they've tried to do this offseason, trying to change both lines of scrimmage, kind of build from the middle out. I mean, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked Saturday about wanting a team that can win multiple ways. And I think you've seen that carry through the offseason where they've said they have to be able to win some slugfest type games every once in a while. And a lot of the moves from Donovan Jackson, even down through, I think, Kobe King and Gavin Bartholomew, kind of fit with that. They wanted to add size. They wanted to add some physicality. And I think a lot of that strategy mapped pretty nicely onto what they've done through the offseason. So I would say a B+, at least on a first blush.
Yeah.
This is really hard because if there are like 11 players, then we can grade it a little easier. I think it's kind of nuanced for me because in one way, as an analytics enjoyer, I was thinking trade down, take whatever trade you can get, move back, get more draft picks, more dart throws if you possibly can. And even some of the traditional ways we think about positional value, guard is not someone we say, oh, that's a premium position necessarily. At the same time, when you look at the actual fit in the context of this roster, it makes so much sense. I mean, Donovan Jackson is someone who's played a lot of football, who can step in right away. And then you spend 5 minutes listening to him the other day and you go, this seems like a Kevin O'Connell, Minnesota Viking. And I felt the same way with pretty much every player they picked. I mean, you listen to somebody like Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins talk with us the other day, and the maturity and also him understanding that there's a lot of great defensive linemen here and I need to develop and I need to learn. So they picked very much Viking fits and players that we know this. If Brian Flores says, I want that guy, I identified him, we're all going to say, okay, well, we believe you. And someone like Kobe King is really interesting to me because I thought he was going to go a lot higher in this draft. So immediately you get some linebacker depth that they needed. Appears to be a very high character leader type of player. So within the context of a team that is really stacked from top to bottom on this roster, you're finding players that fit in these nice little areas, like the third tight end. They use the third tight end. We saw that from Johnny Munt over the years. They need linebackers and special teamers. So if you were just looking at this from a broad analytical perspective, you'd probably go, I don't know, maybe it's like a C. But I think for an actual fit, it's probably B+ or A-, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It's funny you say that because, you know, when I get asked about what I think about these picks or after talking with them, it's literally what I say. I'm like, the guy just sounds like someone we've heard get drafted by this staff time and time again, that high character, high quality, high motor, high intelligence. Like, I mean, that just seems to be checking off the boxes for most of the guys that we've talked to in this era of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell making those picks. I want to ask you, and maybe you touched on it a little bit, but Ben, I'll start with you again. Your most intriguing or favorite pick of the 2025 class? I know there's 5 to choose from, so we might cover 3 just right now, but I'd like you to go first.
I mean, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, I think, would be a guy that sticks out because, I mean, you see the body type, you see the ability to get upfield. He's not the type of player they've had in a long time, and I think there's been, obviously, an effort to, whether it's Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave, upgrade the interior pass rush. They've seen it done to them. They've seen what it can do to quarterbacks, how it can mess things up for a quarterback, and when you pair that with all of the things that Brian Flores does behind it, I think it can be disruptive. He is a different type of player because the size probably is not quite as big as a lot of defensive tackles. I'm sure that concerns some teams, and it's probably why he's on the board still in the 5th round. But the speed, the agility, the ability to get upfield, I think is one of those things that, especially as he develops and finds a role in this defense, could be a guy that, you know, maybe he's on the field for 15, 20 snaps a game as a rookie, but those could be some impactful plays, especially in pass rush situations. So he's one I'm curious to see what they do with him, and I think he's somebody that could have an impact in probably kind of a niche role, but probably is somebody that comes in pretty quickly and does some things that we notice and are talking about.
We've seen those niche roles a few times in this Brian Flores scheme. Matthew, I'll go with you.
Let me go with a crazy hot take. Donovan Jackson.
Yes!
So my thing going into this draft was whatever they do to help J.J. McCarthy be a better version of J.J. McCarthy is going to get a high grade for me. And Donovan Jackson, I think, is a guy that could have a trickle-down effect. So, number one, if you look at the difference between quarterbacks passing when they're kept clean versus when they're pressured, it's absolutely enormous. And you can look at someone like Baker Mayfield, who was the least pressured quarterback in the league, threw 41 touchdowns and had 106 quarterback rating. We saw what happens in the playoffs when you do get pressured a high amount. So an upgrade there at the left guard and pass protection immediately helps J.J. McCarthy. Another thing that helps him is running the football. I mean, this is a team that has not been able to necessarily lean on that run game over the last couple of years. And when I look at Jackson, his athletic profile, his movement skill, we saw it at the combine. And this guy can really get going, and I think he's a great fit for the zone type of running they do. But I also have to throw out there Tai Felton as well, because I think Felton does something that they don't have. They have deep wide receivers that we've seen Sam Darnold throw down the field last year so much. But you'd also, for a young quarterback, like someone where you can just throw them a screen and then they run for 20 yards. And I think Tai Felton, sub 4.40. You saw one of the highest rates of broken tackles among receivers in college football. Both of those picks, I know I picked the top two ones. I didn't go deep cut for that. But I think these, just as I mentioned before, they're very, very good fits for what they need.
Well, and I think, too, we've seen them, I mean, a Rondale Moore type player is that type of receiver where it's, hey, this could be a safety valve guy that can turn something into a big play. I think Tai Felton fits in that regard, makes it a little easier for J.J. McCarthy. I also think with him, and probably with Kobe King, there's a special teams component to this. There are a few of those picks that feel like they were made with special teams in mind to add a little bit of explosiveness with the kickoff. Everybody's hoping the ball is put in play a little bit more often. A guy with the dynamic abilities of a Tai Felton with some experience in that area probably doesn't hurt in that capacity either.
Can I just add with Kobe King, because I really like this pick. And the reason that I like it the most is a very simple and basic reason. He's a violent player. Like when you watch him in college, we saw him against the Gophers play, and you just go, like, that's it. When you see somebody tackle the way he does and come downhill the way he does, cover as much ground, immediately that stands out to you. And I think this is a year, too, where the NFL wants a lot of kick returns. And even if you could bring someone in, it's not something that we're going to notice a lot. We're not going to do all 22 film studies on. Maybe Pete Bursich will, but I think that a player like that who loves to tackle, loves to play with some violence in his game can be a big help on special teams right away and be depth if he's needed.
Yeah, I found even in like the undrafted free agents, there was a lot of emphasis on special teams. A lot of the free agency signings, there was that component that is there. And that's why I think that Tai Felton will get on the field a little bit faster than most maybe think because of the kick return, the punt return abilities. I have to say this, my husband's a Maryland grad. We were very excited that Tai Felton was there because he was one of his favorite players on that team. Keenan McCardell has a lot of connections with that Maryland staff.
He used to be the receivers coach there.
Yes. So his connections, his excitement, I like the collaborative effort that they always talk about. Like if Brian Flores or if Keenan McCardell says, I want that guy, it's an effort to get that guy. And so Tai Felton was my favorite pick, I think, of this draft as well. We're speaking of those undrafted free agents. I want to ask you guys now, it's a lot of names, a lot of research. If you're really into that stuff, like go for it. There's a whole list on Vikings.com. Also, there's a QR code on our screen right now. You can check out the Draft Central or Vikings.com to see more on those undrafted free agents. Wanted to get maybe a name people should kind of hone in on, someone that you think, Ben, could stand out and be maybe the next Vikings free agent that makes the roster. They have a history.
Yeah, I mean, Logan Brown, the tackle from Kansas, is probably the one that sticks out to me the most. 6'6", 311, a guy that was a lot of people's high on the recruiting list for a lot of people coming out of high school, and probably needs a little bit of development to play in the NFL. But there were people that had him as I think, mid-round pick, and I think a lot of people were surprised that he was available as a free agent. So again, probably needs to develop, particularly as a pass setter at this level, but he's somebody that if they can get to work with him, you always need depth on your offensive line. I mean, that's going to be a spot where a swing tackle going forward, somebody that can step in and maybe play a role in the next few years, is going to be a valuable commodity. We have seen this organization put a high priority on tackle depth, whether it's David Quessenberry or Justin Skule this offseason, because you typically need those types of players. So if Logan Brown can develop, I think he is possibly a guy that sticks around and plays a role here in the next few years.
I'm going to have to use that QR code because that was going to be my answer. What I like about Logan Brown is his athletic profile. I mean, you just don't see guys with that type of athleticism usually go undrafted. But I'll throw out a couple of more. Tyler Batty was someone that stood out to me at the Combine. And the thing about this defense is an often used criticism of a player is he's a tweener. We kind of hear that from Ingram Dawkins. Tweener seems to work for Brian Flores. In a 3-4 type of defense, somebody weighs 270 pounds or something like that. Well, that's someone who's usually thought of as, well, he can't play DT, but he can't play D-end. Well, in this defense, with so many moving parts, you probably can find it. And I think there's a really good group of guys who were not drafted who are going to compete for those spots. Bo Richter, Gabriel Murphy, and just kind of adding to that group of depth players. The other one would be Trey Stewart. Numbers are phenomenal, as you'd expect from someone that they went and got.
Yeah.
But when you look at this draft, they did not go out and get a running back. They added Jordan Mason, but they haven't added any other free agents. So there's an opportunity for somebody to potentially say, like, I'm here, I can do this. And where I think it's really wide open is that kick returning battle. We don't know right now who is going to be the kick returner, but suddenly that person's going to touch the football probably a lot this year, and Stewart might be that guy.
Okay, I love those. I was also going to say Tyler Batty. I think that I like the size of him. He's very athletic. He scored really high in athleticism at the Combine. And I'm with you. Like the whole Brian Flores scheme, he finds these guys. He molds them into his scheme. He knows what they're good at, knows where to place them. And I think with his maturity, I mean, he is 25 years old. He's one of the older rookies. I think the maturity is there. Again, high character, all Big 12 selection, first team. I think that there could be something. And my kind of dark horse one that I wanted to at least put in there is Georgia's Chaz Chambliss. Again, I think it's another, like what you guys said, an in-betweener where his size may not be what you want, but he's got that aggressiveness. He's got the motor, the want-to, kind of like reminded me a little of an Ivan Pace in the sense of like the way that he plays the game. But I think it could be someone Brian Flores is excited about.
Well, and he's a guy that I think fits in a lot of what Flores wants to do. He's got the motor, got the hustle, but also probably a special teamer. I mean, if the ball is going to be put in play more often, it's going to require more defensive backs, more linebackers. I mean, that play looks more like a stretch run at times when the ball is actually put in play. So guys that can make open field tackles, I think, are going to be at a premium in special teams phases. And Chambliss may be one of those guys that can, at least in the early part of his career here, make a contribution there as well.
And just to toss it out there, I think the tight end competition is going to be really, really interesting beyond the two starters, that there's an open competition there for somebody to rise up. And we've seen that before, late round draft picks, undrafted guys who develop and become really interesting players for them.
Well, the moves weren't just in the draft room that they made, where there were trades involved. There were free agents signed. And I think one of the biggest storylines of the weekend, despite there being an NFL draft, was the acquisition of Sam Howell into the Vikings quarterback room. A lot of questions going into this offseason. What are they going to do? There were a lot of rumors swirling, a lot going on. I think they may have found the guy they were looking for, a veteran presence in that room. Ben, when that news came across, your news feed, what were you thinking?
Well, it was the kind of move that I think makes sense. And we've kind of been waiting for that player. And, a lot of it had been about comp picks. But then I think Kevin O'Connell alluded last week, so there may be some other things in the works.
Sure.
And obviously this becomes one of those things that was in the works. Sam Howell is a guy that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked about, somebody they looked at in that first draft here a couple of years ago. And I think is somebody that makes some sense for them, given what they've been able to do developing quarterbacks. I mean, he has shown that he's had some issues with turnovers. He's shown he's had some issues with, kind of getting the intermediate throws, getting some of the touch throws at the NFL level. But those are a lot of the things that J.J. McCarthy came in needing to work on. So there's a developmental curve there that I think they've shown they can take quarterbacks on. There's a developmental curve that I think makes some sense. He has some things in his game in terms of downfield throws, in terms of mobility, that probably mirror J.J. McCarthy fairly well. And you talk a lot about quarterbacks and wanting a backup that has some of that same skill set as the starter so that you don't have to completely morph the offense if that guy takes over. I think he makes some sense in that capacity. He will take some development, take some bringing along, but they've shown that they're not afraid of doing that with quarterbacks.
Kevin O'Connell quarterback school in session now, Matt? Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Sam Howell's younger than a quarterback that was drafted in the second round. Is that correct?
I think that's right.
I don't think he's turned even 25 years old yet, which I think says that there's upside, but also he has been in the heat of battle before he started for an entire season. And when you look at the team that he started for, they were in pretty tough shape. He's going to come to a team here that is a lot different than that, with the wide receivers, the offense, the coaching, all those things from what he had in Washington when he had an opportunity. I think what you're looking for in a backup quarterback is always, if you needed 4 games for someone to fill in, could they win you 2 of them? Keep the train on the tracks. Don't let a season go awry. And I think with his skill set and talent, he fits that mold, but also has developmental upside. I will say in the 2022 draft, I was one of those, hey, maybe just take Sam Howell in the 3rd or the 4th. So I think now I get to be right about that.
There you go.
Now that they have him, right?
Statute of limitations on mock draft takes does not expire after 3 years. I
the
think
limit does not exist.
Okay, good. Yeah,
I think
all right,
you're good.
then great pick. No, I think the thing is, too, they gave up essentially nothing. I mean, they moved down a little bit, but if you can go out and get a backup quarterback that you think can play effectively as a fill-in and have the experience to help J.J. McCarthy along and compete in practice, which I think is really important as well, then you've done well for yourself.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys being here, sharing your insights. I know you'll be around the facility a little bit here in the next few months because off-season workouts have already begun, and we'll hear more from the current players as well as some of the new Vikings players on Vikings.com and the Vikings app. Thank you again, Matthew and Ben, for being here. And yeah, make sure you tune in because there's going to be plenty more happening on Vikings.com and the Vikings app as these off-season workouts continue.